Hi, ladies, and welcome. I'm so excited to join you today at the Sister Circle online event. And I'd just like to say I'm super proud of you for investing in yourself, for taking a moment in the midst of all this transition to really pause, to reflect, to focus, and to ask God, what am I supposed to be doing in this moment? And Lord, what are you saying to me? I don't know about you, but I have felt this transition so deeply. And it has impacted me so significantly, and I certainly am not alone. I wanted to spend a little time today about sharing just a couple things that God's been showing me about how I can more effectively navigate in this particular transition, but also how I can be resilient and respond to the many transitions in my life. Merriam-Webster defines transition, I have it right here, as a passage from one state, stage, subject, or place to another. So, the idea that we've somehow kind of gone into the black hole of space and we are pressing through this unknown area, and on the other side is a destination that I don't know about you, but I don't feel like I really know what that's going to look like. Then it has this nice definition. Transition means change. You and I are in the midst of a massive change, a movement, an evolution from one form or one style to another. We're being transformed. Now, I don't know about you, but transformation is not always comfortable. And ultimately, I feel like I spend a lot of time thinking about transition from a slow perspective. I'm always looking to the future. It's kind of in my brain. I'm always building dreams in my mind and looking ahead. And I can see that transition is coming or transition is needed. But often I'm just feeling like it's slow. Like, God, is it ever going to happen? And one of the things that I've noticed over the years is that God will make my transition slow because often He's conforming my character. He's doing a behind the scene work in my heart that, thank God, He does not always have to do in public. But I can be fretful and wish that God would hurry up and bring the suddenly when He's saying, whoa, Jan, you're not quite ready. So slow transition, I feel like most of us can identify with. But what you and I are dealing with right now is an abrupt transition. Sometimes transition is abrupt. Our life gets interrupted by an event or a moment that changes everything. Some of you know what I'm talking about. Those types of changes sometimes come with either pain or shock. Maybe it's full of pressure. Suddenly everything that was on hold is now a go, and you're like, I don't know if I'm prepared. I thought I had my foot on the gas pedal and now I'm unsure. Maybe it resulted from a crisis in your life, a financial difficulty, the loss of a loved one. One day things were one way and the next day they were different. This is a difficult transition. But I have found that in the abrupt transitions, my character is revealed. A slow transition, God is working on my character. An abrupt transition reveals the work I've been doing with God in private. How I respond to a pandemic is really indicative of a good measurement of where is my character. Certainly, the pandemic is an abrupt transition. The thing I find so fascinating about this season is I think we're in a biblical transition. Like I think if the scripture were still being drafted, this would be included in the scripture as such a massive time of shakeup, governmental to home change. I wrote down it's a worldwide interruption. The entire world got up one way one day, and the next day we were changed. Every nation, government, community, business, school, and home have felt the impact. Really, none of us have escaped what's happening in our world. But now, despite the difficulties and the unknown, we're several weeks out. I think I'm in my 12th week of learning to work from home. So despite the unknowns and the difficulties, we've adjusted. The fact that I am recording this message in my guest bedroom all by myself is just such a simple picture of the things that we thought would be impossible, that we would have never considered doing this way. We now find creative solutions. People are working from home. Kids are homeschooling. Maybe some of you have had a loss or a change in job. Something that's sometimes difficult is suddenly we're together all the time with the people we love. That's a big change. And also, we've lost some things. There's been a lot of things that we thought we were on the cusp of doing. Dreams that had to be canceled. Engagements that were postponed. Things you've worked for and believed for that seem to have died. And even then, there's just the simple losses, like going out to eat, meeting a friend for coffee, going to work and being with your team. I don't know, getting in the car and going wherever you want. Those are all losses to us and things that we grieve. I don't know about you, but I kind of grieved a lot for a little while. And I'm wondering if you can relate, because when I share that I have felt the death of many dreams. Things I was committed to or working on, or I thought I was on the cusp of making happen, both at work and in my personal life. It seems like they no longer matter, or they're gone. And I actually felt for several weeks a little confused about, well, what am I supposed to do? Even in my work, I was doing my work according to what I was being instructed, but it was so radically different and so changed that I kept asking the Lord, am I doing the job? Am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? It was a little bit of a loss of identity in the midst of the transition. And as a result, I've questioned whether my dreams were man-made or God-made. And I've been struggling with the fact that I have some character issues that were revealed due to the pressure of abrupt transition that I could not see before, that I've got to work on. Now that all kind of sounds like bad news, and I don't mean it that way. I just want you to get a grasp of kind of like take a faraway step and look back at where we are, because to be honest, we're on the cusp of another abrupt transition. It won't be as abrupt as the one that brought us home, but it is still about to happen. We are about to go back to work. We are about to become employed and to return to our patterns. And all of us are already thinking about this transition. We have a little bit of warning here, and we're wondering, what are we going to take forward and what are we going to leave behind? And when we get there, what are we going to pick back up and what are we going to let lie? So this second season of transition, it's full of a lot of uncertainty, and it's going to require, again, adaptability. You know, adaptability requires a tremendous amount of emotional energy. And I wonder if you've done the proper resting you need to do in this moment to have the energy, the strength, the character to adapt again. It's going to require a different level of wisdom for everyone. I pray for our government leaders every day. I can't imagine the responsibility that comes with knowing whether to open public buildings and gather children in schools. And for our church overseers, my goodness, they must hear the voice of God. And so everyone is weighing what is possible and what is safe. And we are realizing, much like the effects of 9/11, that some things will never be the same again. As I think about this transition that we went through, I felt like the Lord reminded me about Joseph. You know, Joseph went through some very abrupt changes in his life. And he demonstrated over and over a remarkable ability to just adjust to incredibly difficult circumstances. He could have spent his whole life just mourning over the rejection of his brothers or regretting the loss of his dreams. But every time that Joseph was rejected, we find him in the next season serving with the favor of God on his life. Now remember, Joseph had abrupt transitions several times. He must have been filled with fear. He had to suffer from the pain of rejection. He even experienced true bondage. He was sold into slavery. He was locked in prisons. He was forgotten and overlooked. He was lied about. His character was maligned. He was put away. Yet when he landed in the courts of Pharaoh, he looked around and he began to work and serve and use what he had. And we know that it was years between his dream at 17 and his appointment, scholars think, at about age 30, that Joseph finally understood why God would allow the pain and the transition of his life, why God would allow it to happen to him. And he tells us very clearly that what his brothers meant for evil, God meant for good. We'll come back to that verse in a few minutes. So thinking about the life of Joseph and how it parallels to our own transition in this moment, I just want to, help you navigate. I want to help you focus on a few small practical things that you can do to prepare yourself and to move through the transition. my first thing I want to share is be careful not to get stuck in the past. If you think that the old dream that you were working on, the thing that you thought God was saying, or even that he was saying, and that now seems dead, is the best dream, then you're going to remain in a cycle of suffering. But if we're consistently focused on what's not working or what we've lost, we lack the ability to embrace what is new or what is better. Genesis 37:28, here's Joseph. His brothers pulled Joseph up out of the cistern and sold him for 20 shekels of silver to the Ishmaelites who took him to Egypt. Now Joseph could have gotten stuck right there. That's some need for some serious inner healing. He could have regretted that he told his dreams to his brothers. He could have gotten hung up on maybe my dream wasn't real. He could have been deeply ashamed or fearful. Surely he worried about his dad, and Joseph could have gotten stuck, but he didn't. And I don't want you to get stuck either. I want you to go ahead and give your best in this moment with what you have and what you know. That's what Joseph did. You know, he showed us the remedy for grief and uncertainty, and that's that we go ahead and be of service. This is a good time for you to think about somebody else. Volunteer your time. Lead a small group. Take some food to a friend. Send a note of encouragement. The small things do matter, especially if you will do them in relation to assisting someone else. Go ahead and talk with others about your journey and talk about the focus and the energy and the places that you need to move through your character development so that you have the courage to dream again. You're going to have to dream again. You're going to have to develop again, and you're going to have to learn again. And the best cure for grief is service. The second point I want to share to you is kind of funny. You know, it's the year 2020. So it's time for you and I to get a new perspective. Like, we need 2020 vision. We need to have some of our vision corrected. I believe that God is using this moment to adjust the vision of the church, to help us to understand and see what we could not see before, to even eliminate some activities or thinking or processes that were complicated and overly expensive or demanding, and to simplify the message of the gospel again. He's empowered every believer to preach, to teach, to testify. This is not the moment of the famous one powerful voice. This is the moment of every voice, and your voice matters. And if you don't have that perspective, you're going to be silent in this season. You're going to wait for someone else to speak up, and you're going to miss seeing what could be. You're going to miss that new dream if you don't let God adjust your vision. In Genesis 39:2, we see that Joseph allowed the Lord to adjust his vision. And how we know that he did is because it says that the Lord was with Joseph. So he succeeded in everything he did as he served in the home of his Egyptian master. You see, that success that you and I long for and want and linger for, the righteous success of the saints, the impact of the gospel, or the comfort or the help or the healing for someone else. Success like that comes when the Lord is with us and when we serve and submit. So in this season, you need a new perspective. Who is it you need to serve right now? Joseph does it in a big picture way too. I mean, God does it in a big picture way too. If you think about it, we're constantly hearing right now and seeing how the world is responding to this crisis. And you might have noticed that a lot of the airwaves are filled with chaos, misinformation, and even fear-mongering. Can I just say that's not the approach, that's not the response, that's not how Jesus feels in this moment, and honestly, that's not how you and I need to see it. Our perspective needs to be one of opportunity and hope and service. God is up to something so incredible. He is activating the church, and you and I are a part of it. You know, the gift waiting to be claimed and getting a new perspective is the ability to see that whole picture. You'll be able to see what you lost. You'll be able to acknowledge the good, the bad, the precious, and even the horrible, the painful. But then you're also going to be able to see the potential of what remains and what is ahead. Now, once you reach this point, once your vision is adjusted, I want you to pause for just a moment, and I want you to go back to the altars of your life. I want you to renew the altars of your life. You know, Joseph had a dream and it died, but it was fulfilled years later. Surely the way it was fulfilled was so foreign to what he imagined as a 17-year-old, or maybe as a 20-year-old, or a 25-year-old. But that dream lingered with him. And in a way, our dreams linger with us too. I wonder how many times Joseph returned to the moment of the dream and pondered if he'd missed the mark or if he reinforced his belief in what God had said to him. In Genesis 49:41, it says, so Pharaoh, this is kind of toward the end of Joseph's story, he's been brought before Pharaoh for the interpretation of the dream, which he interprets, and then he gives wise counsel. Like he's very executive leader for sure. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, I hereby put you in charge of the whole land of Egypt. Now, it wasn't until this moment that Joseph began to realize the real purpose of his dream, his real destiny. In this moment, he began to realize, Genesis 50:20, you intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. You see, Joseph's dream wasn't really about him at all. And it wasn't really about his brothers bowing down to him or about him being an exalted leader. And that even when the moment came that his brothers would bow down to him, he was filled with humility. His character was honed. And he knew that what God was entrusting him with was people. Now, you do know the treasure of heaven is people. And regardless of what dream or seed God has put in your heart, maybe you think it's about you. Maybe it centers around you. But it is always about its impact on people. You want God to trust you with this dream so that it can save lives, so it can serve, so it can comfort, so it can bless, so it can testify. Your dreams are all about other people. After all these activities, responsibilities, and dreams, and all the crucibles of transition that Joseph went through, what was left? What's left for you? In this crucible, in this crushing, in this moment of being small and compressed, what is left? What is left? You know, the season is not just about loss. It's about a moment of quiet and restful reflection. The Lord told me I would need 80 days. 80 days when we began. Now, 80 days seemed impossibly long to me. I will tell you that 80 days ends on May 31st, which is Pentecost. And I'm super excited that I calculated that and discovered it. And I'm sure that God is saying something to me about the infilling of his Spirit and the activation of testimony. But I'm trying not to interpret the word. I'm trying to remember I'm in the 80 days. The 80 days is a multitude of Sabbaths. I wonder how many of these 80 days you've experienced as a Sabbath. Have you gone about the work and the transition and the support and the relationships in an attitude of rest? And if you have not, it's not too late. I want you to return to the altars of your youth. I want you to go back to the moment when God spoke to you. The moment you became aware of a calling, maybe the moment of your salvation, maybe the moment of a dream. I want you to go back to the moment that God put the seed in you and it began to say, wow, I'm really passionate about this. Or, wow, I got to do something about this issue. And I want you to engage God there and in that moment and ask him to remind you about the seed he planted in the good soil. He planted it in the soil that will reproduce. He plants it deep in that 100-fold soil. And if we don't let it become stolen by worry or lack of attention, it will bear fruit. Even now, you might look back and you might see that seed as a giant tree. Maybe you've made a lot of progress and you can see the evidence of that seed in your life. But some of us are still like seeing just shoots. Maybe our seed has just cracked and we were beginning to see this little green plant stick its head above the ground. And now we think it's impossible. That's a lie. It is not impossible. That shoot is powerful, and that seed possesses the strength to move you forward. So go back to the seed. Go back to the altar. And I want you to make it an altar. I want you to think about putting around it the stones of thanksgiving and saying to God, thank you. Thank you, Lord. Thank you that you didn't leave me in this place. Thank you that you gave me the gift of your love. Thank you that you called me. Thank you that I do have a dream. Thank you that you sustain me even when I feel rejected or imprisoned or bound by slavery. Thank you that when what I thought we were doing died and something new is rebirthed. Make it a memorial to God. Rejoice. Your dream might be small or it might be large. In either case today, I want you to worship right there. Just worship. The altar is faithful. The altar is faithful. It's a marker of a moment that you can return to over and over. But the seed that you received at the altar is like a vine. Your calling is like a vine. It changes, it grows, it gets pruned, it loses leaves, it gets attacked by insects. Eventually it gains fruit. It changes season by season. Don't be discouraged if what you thought were your dreams, you thought were the altar, and they were the vine. Let the vine grow. If you need to prune it, prune it. If you need to nurture it, nurture it. Ask God how to dress the vine of your calling, because we know He prunes in order to make things fruitful. And He nurtures and provides everything we need, that what was fruitful can be more fruitful. Did you ever think that a worldwide pandemic is in effect the pruning hand of God? He pruned us all, good and evil, righteous and unrighteous. Simple and complicated. He sharply pruned us. And it is His heart that you and I would return to that altar and nurture the seed that we might be very, very fruitful. So God is responsible in this moment for the impact or the multiplication or the fruitfulness of your seed. You are responsible for the obedience. It is you who must nurture and shape and foster the message or the mission. But you have to surrender the impact, the reach, and the effectiveness to God. And if He chooses to prune it, then praise Him, because His pruning is to make you more fruitful. So, like Joseph, I want you to find yourself in the place of destiny. And when you are exalted in the way that Joseph was exalted, where all people bowed to him, in that moment, Joseph was no longer that 17-year-old boy who would brag to his brothers. He was no longer full of himself and happy with that coat of many colors, but he was humbled. He was so humbled that he wept. He wept when he saw his brothers from love, and his heart was to explain to them, I have forgiven you, and more than that, you did me good. This takes mature character. And sometimes God brings you home. He prunes you sharply so that He can develop your character. And in the next season, He can trust you to be fruitful. So God bless you. I pray that whatever dream is upon your heart, whatever it is you're trying with all your might to birth, that it will come forth in this next season, and that God will be able to put His hand on it and multiply it according to His will. Remembering that its whole purpose is to bless another person. You know, our God, He's all about the one person, and we're all about the many. So don't forget, He starts with addition. He moves to multiplication. He wants you to care more about the people than you do the dream. I trust you. I bless you. I can't wait to see the fruit of your labor. And may God bless you deeply as we move out. Let's get ready for the next transition. Something wonderful is happening. God bless you guys.